We're going to make a snare drum for drum and bass from scratch using Superior Drummer 3 and Serum and a bunch of processing. So we're going to make sounds that are a bit like this. I've got a couple snares I've made before. It's going to sound like this, or maybe like this, whatever you really like. This is more of a process than anything else, so you can kind of do a repeat of this process. It's sort of an algorithm for creating snare drums for drum and bass. So I'm just going to talk you through the process that I have. So firstly, I have Superior Drummer set up here, and I've got my outputs of it routing to different audio tracks. I'm not going to get into exactly how I have done that. That's a topic for another video potentially. But just to let you know, that's what I have. I've got a little template in Ableton for this. And secondly, I have set up a MIDI track here with snare drum. And inside Superior Drummer, what I have done and what we can kind of start with is if we sort of just start with a new default patch here, maybe like that. Great. We get a drum sound. So let me just hit the on for that. For drum and bass, we're looking for kind of maybe high snares, but we definitely want a short snare drum. So that's a big one. We're going to look through the ones we have. I've just got the basic collection, but I know that... Which one of these? One of these sounds good. Oh, that one sounds good. It's very heavy sounding. What about this guy? Let's go back to this one. I think this is the one I like. I'm going to tune it up a bit. I think that sounds cool. I'm going to process it, and it always sounds different when you process it. Okay, and then obviously, it is way too long. Way too long. I need to fix this mixer thing real quick. Multi-channel outputs. Great. It was all the bleed was coming through all the other stuff. So anyway, we now have a snare drum that's too long. So I'm going to update the envelope to make the release be way shorter. About there sounds good to me. I'm also going to turn off hit variation because I want to take a couple samples and pick the one I like the most, but hit variation just makes it sound too different, and I like the kind of initial hit. Cool, so those are the snare sounds, and then we've kind of got a drum hit that we've pitched up, made the envelope a bit shorter, and then finally we need to decide between, do we want this to be really dry or do we want some bleed? Because right now we've got this overhead. And this is what it sounds like with overhead and without. Last time I did this, I actually I turned the overhead off, so it was really dry. But I'm actually going to turn this on because I want to do some interesting stuff in a little bit here. Cool, so I'm now going to resample this out. Can I do this now? Hey, check that out. Cool, good job, Ableton. Now I have some audio for the snare. I'm just going to grab any of them. They're all pretty similar right now. And just reduce this down to 1 here. And set the start point. I like to grab it on one of the samples right there. Cool, so now I have a snare drum from Superior Drummer. Next, what we're going to do is basically enhance the sound of this by adding a synthesizer layer below it. So if I grab Serum 2, and we are going to create a MIDI note probably around F-ish, around there, a fish, around by a fish, and this is going to be our kind of knock layer. I'm going to make the phase be at the start of the waveform and no randomness at all, and set this to be a triangle wave. I'm going to use envelope 2 on the course and make it go from about 24 semitones up all the way back down. And we'll do this by setting the attack of the envelope 2 to 0, sustain all the way down. Then the decay is going to be really short, like 15 milliseconds or something. becomes a little hard to hear the knock, so I'm going to solo that. Okay, so it's a little bit like a bump, bump, bump. And then on the overall envelope, start attack 0 again, sustain all the way down, and then decay we're going to kind of bring really low as well. So there you go, just a bit of a knock. I am also going to add a second oscillator, set it to sine wave, again, phase 0, and I'm going to bring the level all the way down. I'm going to phase modulate this first oscillator with B, just to give it a little bit more kind of a metallic knocky sound. Like that's too far. That's pretty good. So without and with. So we have a little bit of a knock underneath. Now the next thing we need to do is make sure that these two are in line, because essentially we need our speakers to be moving in the same position when two things layered are played at the same time, right? So what we could do is bounce this to audio and then check that the initial transients here, or the initial waves, are in line. What I'm going to do, because I have Shaperbox, is use Shaperbox. It has a really good oscillator on it, one I really like using. If I set it to audio, and then I set the sidechain input to be the Serum 2 patch there, I can see both of the waveforms at the same time. And both my waveforms happen to be aligned on that first transient. But as you can see, the second one isn't quite aligned, so we can always sort of mess around with things like I like that because it's a little bit higher. It's only a couple semitones higher, but it's just aligning a bit nicer with those first two transients. The other way that you can check this is to flip the phase. So if these aren't in phase, you can always flip the phase by taking the input, flipping the left and right. So now you can see these are opposite, so they're not hitting it the same way. So if I flip that back, nice. Cool, so with that, I'm going to bounce this guy out as 1. And then we get our combination waveform of the snare drum and the synthesizer underneath it. Cool, so now that we've done that, layered the synth with the acoustic drum, we need to now process this in a way that preserves the punch of the sound, but also adds some kind of character, some width, etc. So in order to achieve this, I'll call this one our bounced snare, we need to essentially process the mid channel and the side channel separately. The way that I will do this is by adding a utility, grouping it into an effect rack, and then calling this one mid, and then I'll make another one called side. On the mid channel, I'm going to basically, on the utility, set it as mono. So this is just the middle channel. On the side, on the utility plugin, I am going to right click on the width and set it to mid-side mode. This is a way of switching between mid-side. So I can switch it left and it's going to be fully mono. And then if I switch it to right, it's only going to be the sound of the left channel minus the right channel. So everything on the sides. Well, that's terrible because I need to solo it. There you go. And that sounds weird, right? But that is the left and the right channel minused. So what we are going to do is extensively process this channel whilst basically leaving the mid channel completely clean. That means that you get all of the punch right in the middle, and it's mono compatible for, club speakers. And then the side is going to have a lot of interest and a lot of punch. So I'm going to add a saturator to the side channel and just kind of really boost it. And I'll move that down too. Actually, no, I'll keep that up and I'll pull this down. And then I'll kind of blend in the side with the mid. And we need to have that so I can actually hear it. So you see how that sounds if I add another utility just at the end. If I put it in mono, you get all the punch right in the middle. And if I take it off of mono, you get extra kind of punch. I don't know. Punch is such a... I'm using that word too much. Fizzle. What a great word. On the edges. So I can do whatever I want. Wave shaper. Bring that a little bit higher. Check it in mono. Sounds great. Cool. And then we can do anything with this. We could add phaser to the side channel. It might sound a bit weird. I have no idea how it would sound actually. Cool. We get a really weird sounding snare that is still mono compatible. So with that, you can do all sorts of things, maybe some color. Let's see. Cool. We need to then sort of glue these two together. So I'm going to use a clipper. And then I'm also going to use a shaper box oscilloscope again, just so that we can see what we're doing here. Boom, bam, 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 bam. And I'm just going to use the clipper to chop off the very top. Cool. The last thing that I want to do is actually remove some of the mud here. So there is a little bit of low end that I don't want in my mid signal. So I'm going to use the EQ8 set to mid side mode. And I'm going to just remove everything up to about 530-ish. Because we remove a lot of that low end in the side signal. Makes it a lot cleaner. So without, we're essentially basically removing any competition between the lower end of the frequencies, the lower end of the sound, from the mid and the side. We can always, on the mid as well, we can always do something like remove a little bit at the bottom end too. And that sounds pretty good. And then we could clip it a little bit more if we want. Cool, I think that sounds good. And then bounce this guy out. Normalize it. And then just bring it down so we don't destroy our ears. And now take a look at that waveform. Very clean waveform. Got a nice strong transient, a good kind of tail. And there is interest in both the side signal. So make this go back to mid side. Mono's good. And then side's good.